But tonight we begin with the Washington swamp, where Biden's balloon saga, it is now on week 3, and it is getting nuttier by the day. Now, today's developments raise far more questions than you could ever imagine. Now, earlier, your president, Joey, the president of the United States, finally said something about the other 3 objects besides the Chinese spy balloon that he decided to shoot down over North America airspace last week with $400,000 missiles that you paid for. But don't expect any clarity from Joe Biden. Now, here is the truly frightening part. Joe has absolutely no idea. He told us today, none at all whatsoever, what these objects were, where they came from, what they were doing. He has no idea what he ordered our military to shoot down. I am not making this up. This is what he said earlier today. Take a look.
We don't yet know exactly what these 3 objects were, but nothing right now suggests they were related to China's spy balloon program or that they were surveillance vehicles from any other country. The intelligence community's current assessment is that these 3 objects were most likely balloons tied to private companies, recreation or research institutions studying weather or conducting other scientific research.
Think about this. He doesn't know what he even shot down, but he's very, very confident it wasn't from China. How on earth would he possibly know it's not from China, especially after the first Chinese spy balloon? They should be the #1 suspect. In my mind, they are the #1 suspect. Then he says they could be research balloons. Okay, does anyone here actually believe that? Well, tonight there are unconfirmed reports that one of the 3 objects may have been a $12 high-altitude balloon, now missing from an Illinois-based hobby club. Maybe, did we spend $400,000 to shoot that balloon down? So let me get this straight. It took Biden 8 days to shoot down a known Chinese spy balloon that they said they knew this was coming from the moment of takeoff. It traveled into Alaska airspace, down the west coast of Canada, into Idaho, then over our nuclear silos in Montana, then sensitive military installations in Kansas, Missouri, Kentucky, North and South Carolina, and right off the Atlantic coast, where they finally shot it down after they got all the intelligence they could have ever dreamed of, but with 3 random floating objects that might be research balloons or $12 balloons from a hobby club or something else. Joe doesn't know. Our president ordered the shooting down of an object that he has no idea what he shot down. And by the way, he shot them down in 2 cases over population centers to boot. Isn't that something that he claimed last week? His military said, and he reaffirmed this today, that he wasn't supposed to do. So he had no idea what the objects were when he gave the order to blast them out of the sky. $500,000 missiles. By the way, one of the missiles missed. So it took $800,000 to shoot down one of the unidentified objects, which NORAD is even suggesting and can't rule out it may be alien-related. Okay, beam me up, Scotty. But now think how stupid, for a second here, just stand back and think of how the world is viewing this. Think how other nations are viewing this. I see this, and I heard this president today, and as an American, I just felt nothing but sheer embarrassment watching Joe Biden as weak, disorganized, confused, frail, incompetent. It was downright humiliating and embarrassing. And it even got worse. Take a look.
Thank you very much.
Sir, the question was it? There's been criticism. There's been criticism that this wasn't. There's been criticism that this.
China compromised by your family's business relations.
Sir, Mr. President, there has been criticism.
Did you overreact?
Mr. President, there has been criticism that this was an overreaction that was done because of political pressure.
Okay. You come to my office and ask the question when you have more polite people.
He did, right? Now think about this. Joe Biden said this was not a big deal. This is not a problem. This was not a massive breach, echoed by his brilliant, giggling Vice President Kamala Harris. He then shuffles back into a back room without answering a single question. So we have Mr. Lying Dog-Faced Pony Soldier, President Biden, valuing politeness, Of course, we all know what's going on here. Joe Biden is not mentally capable of answering any tough questions, especially about his family's very deep financial ties to China. We need answers because we, the American people, have a right to know how much money and business did Joe, Hunter, and Jim Biden and the rest of them do with the communist Chinese? Are they bought and paid for? Are they compromised? What compromising materials might the Chinese and the Russians and the Ukrainians and other countries have on the former crack addict that was doing these deals for daddy and giving daddy half his income? That would be Hunter Biden. To Joe, those questions are not relevant. To us, they are. Now, for 8 long days, Joe Biden did nothing as China hovered over our nuclear sites, our military bases, collected untold amounts of data. And when it was all said and done, he reassured his friends in the Communist Party of China, it's no big deal. Joe's words, this was not a major breach. If that's not a major, how many of you think this is a major breach? If you think, I think it's a major breach. Your giggling Vice President Kamala Harris said that it won't impact our relationship in any way. Why not? Now, in the meantime, the Communist Chinese, they are threatening us. They're foaming at the mouth. They're berating the Biden administration. They're livid and apoplectic that Joe Biden actually shot down their spy balloon over our territory, and they're even threatening the United States with retaliation. In their minds, they're acting as if we flew a spy balloon over China. And Joe just sits there and takes it and shows the world nothing but weakness. It really makes you wonder who Biden answers to. It's certainly not we, the American people. Now, as we speak, China maintains ownership of thousands of acres of farmland, ranch land, all across the country. Did all of you know that? Thousands and thousands of acres. I'd like to buy thousands of acres of ranch land and farmland in China. You think they're going to sell it to me? I doubt it. Now, that includes, by the way, 300 acres near Grand Forks Air Force Base in North Dakota, 15,000 acres near Laughlin Air Base, that's in Texas. China also owns land near nuclear sites in Montana, more land close to an Air Force base in Wyoming, and 15,000 acres of land near our nation's capital in the Commonwealth of Virginia for now. Now, if Joe had any courage at all, he would confiscate all of that land. He would do it in the name of national security, and he would do it for free and take it as a partial payment for the COVID devastation that the communist Chinese unleashed on this country and the entire world and lied about it. Thank you. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.